Good evening. My name's Colonel Mark Gerhard. I'm a retired Marine Colonel. I've been retired for a few years now. I currently work for the federal government down at TACOM in Warren. We're a small Marine Corps island there, the light armored vehicle, which is a very old, tired piece of iron that we're still trying to keep alive on the battlefield for at least another decade or so. So, this is a cautionary tale, and it's kind of, the powerful and handsome gentleman over there made a great point about the red flag laws, and this will play into that, as you'll see. But this tale is one that I think is probably played out over time. It just hasn't been publicized because it just hasn't had the opportunity. In this case, Lucas is my son. His opportunity really flourished when this caught fire and it became a viral story. I'm not sure. I guess let me ask, how many of you have heard about this story so far? So approximately maybe a quarter, third of you. Okay, great. Okay, so this is how I don't have any prepared notes. I'm just gonna basically tell you a story and how I saw this fall out. And I was a first-hand knowledge of it from the very beginning. My son Lucas is a straight arrow. When I say straight arrow, the kid's never been in trouble in his life. He's never even had a speeding ticket. And he was a Boy Scout. He pinned on Eagle Scout when he was 18, and he wanted to be a cop. He still wants to be a cop. That's his lifelong dream. He decided to go to Lake Superior State, which is in the UP. Not many people have even heard of it. It's a small school, 2,000 students. It's in Sault Ste. Marie. They get a lot of snow. It's cold. But they have a great criminal justice program for law enforcement. They have an academy right on campus. And the thing that really turned Lucas onto the school was the fact that they actually allow guns, any kind of weapon really, on campus. They have a public safety building, and within that public safety building there's a double locked armory that students can store their weapons in and draw them out. And it's a huge gun culture up there, a huge hunting community. They can draw the weapons out, go shooting at the range. They can go hunting, do whatever they want. There's a large trust factor there because obviously the kids are walking across campus with weapons, which was really kind of disconcerting. And this, to me, that was it was a shock that it was a shock to me. And I was in the Marine Corps for 30 years, and I was, wherever I went, there were guns. But for me to go on a college campus and see someone carrying a gun, just a slung rifle, was a shock, which it shouldn't be. But it was, because that's the kind of world we've been brought up in now, and the fear that's been mongered by the left press. So Lucas was really kind of thrilled about that. He said, "Dad, this is going to be really cool. I'm really looking forward to this." And I was too. So he went through his first couple of years there, and the campus again is very small. It's like a small town. And Lucas, from the very get-go, had initial run-ins with the liberal factions on campus there. Now let me caveat this with Lucas is extremely conservative. He's vocally conservative. He's never been antagonistic about it. He's never been vindictive about it. But he'll stand up for his beliefs, and he will stand his ground when people confront him with what they think are crazy views in their terms, which are just conservative American values. He's got a very straight moral compass. Again, he's never been in trouble. The kid has got his stuff together when it comes to knowing what is right and wrong. So Lucas has a couple of run-ins right from the get-go. There's a law enforcement class, and they have an open blog that basically is asking students, they ask them various questions over time, just for public discussion in the classes. And one of those questions was, what are your views on women in law enforcement? And Lucas quite honestly answered, he said, "Look, I don't have a problem with women in law enforcement. They have as equal opportunity as I do, but I refuse to lower the standards to accommodate percentages of women that are derived out of thin air by bureaucrats." Well, to me that sounds like common sense, but to a large portion of these very militant feminist activists on campus, that was like a dog whistle, and they went after him with a vengeance. I mean, when I say went after him, they went on the social media aspects of the school. They basically made him look like some kind of maniac. And so he was taking it from that side, he was getting support from another side, but it became a very big event right off the bat. And that kind of marked him for the rest of his time. That really laid down the line for these groups to really watch him and go after him. And he would come home and tell me these things, and I would, quite honestly, I'd say, look, Lucas, you're managing a lot of this. I think they've got better things to do than to come after you. But he says, Dad, this is happening. I mean, he would get anonymous calls. He had one instance where he was going to a communications class to do a speech on police crowd control tactics. So he had, at that time he was an Oakland County Sheriff's cadet. So he had a riot shield, he had his helmet, he had his cadet uniform on, and a bag with all their crowd control stuff, baton and things. And he was walking across campus, which is not a large campus, it's 115 acres, walking across to basically do his speech. He shows up to class, and within 5 minutes, there's 2 Sault Ste. Marie police officers there that pull him out of class and want to talk to him. And he's like, what's this about, guys? And they said, look, we've got a complaint. We got a frightened tip that basically said they saw you walking across campus with the stuff, and they were afraid. He's like, look, I'm here to do a speech. So they literally, and he's in the class with the stuff, and he's waiting there. People are up there doing speeches. They made him pull out his note cards and show them his note cards, showing them the subject of his speech. They looked at it, they said, okay, it's good to go. We don't have any issues with this. Next time, if you do this, call us and we'll transport them for you, because obviously this wasn't cool, wasn't kosher. That's the kind of stuff that was happening, and it was always these anonymous tips. At one point, he has an old P-71 police interceptor. It's been around. It's a lot of miles on it, but very noticeable car. Everybody knew he drove that car, and this was last year. The back window of that car was busted out, and it was with a rock or a bat or something. So Lucas reports it to the public safety, and they start conducting an investigation. And in the meanwhile, Lucas gets a tip from a friend of his, a girl who says, look, I know who did this. I heard them talking about it. And she gives him a name. So he takes that name to the housing director, who was apparently the central figure in doing this whole investigation. And she says, okay, I'll take care of this. Well, as it turns out, nothing happened after that. And the case was basically closed without any resolution. So I called up there when Lucas was pretty upset about it. He said, look, you know who did this? And I said, son, you know what, maybe they just didn't have enough proof, or maybe they just didn't want to pursue it, I don't know. So I called the housing director and said, look, I just need to know where this is going and how this is being conducted. And it became very apparent to me at that point that I know for a fact that the girl that told Lucas the name didn't get talked to. She told him that. So she was never interviewed. And I became apparent that the girl that broke that window out didn't get talked to either. So for whatever reason, and she was a known, very active liberal activist on campus. So I don't know if there's a correlation there, but that to me was a telling sign, and that really started me thinking, okay, maybe there's something to what Lucas is telling me about all this. So he rolls into his 3rd year. This would have been his 3rd year this fall. Before that, in the summer, he worked at a local diner, worked midnights, bussing tables, washing dishes, hosting. Worked his butt off and saved up quite a lot of money. Didn't go out and spend it. He saved it because his goals, he told me early on, he said, Dad, I want to buy a rifle. And I had taken him to the range many times at Bald Mountain. We shot quite a bit. He was very safe, very conscious. I had an old Marlin 22 that I let him use. He was extremely good, great marksman too, which made me happy. And so I said, son, that's a great thing. I think you having your own gun would be terrific, and you're old enough to buy a rifle. That's fantastic. So he saved up everything he could, and he ended up deciding on a Colt AR-15, the A4 version, which is extremely similar to the rifle I carried. I had 5 combat deployments, and I carried a very similar rifle, except that it had a burst selector switch on it. Other than that, everything else was almost identical on that rifle. It was great. He ended up buying the rifle, took it out a few times at range, loved it, took it around, showed his friends. was really excited about being able to bring it up to school because having a cool gun up there is like the thing up in the UP. So he posts a Snapchat, and so this is how far behind in the Stone Age I am. I didn't even know what Snapchat really was until this whole thing rolled out. He posts a Snapchat. For those of you that don't know, Snapchat is a kind of a storybook where you post it online, and it has you can write taglines in the pictures, and basically goes out to either go out to the public, it go out to certain groups. In this case, Lake Superior State has they have a whole campus group, they have a bunch of groups, but Lucas had a friends group up there. So he posts a picture of this rifle, and all it was a picture of the rifle in front of his packs, to his closed Snapchat group, saying, "Hey, what do you think? I'm bringing this bad boy up to school. It ought to melt some snowflakes, eh?" And by snowflakes, I mean snow, with a little winky face. It was kind of a tongue-in-cheek jab at the known left up there because they see an AR-15 and they freak out. And also the fact that it's freezing up there like 9 months out of the year, and it's literally snow, so it would melt snowflakes. He doesn't think anything else of it, and he gets a few friends come back and say, "Hey dude, you better watch it, people are gonna freak out if they see this, with guns, and you just gotta be careful." And he's like, "Yeah, you know what, maybe you're right." So he posts a disclaimer saying, "Hey, you know what, that post I had before was not a threat," and then he deletes it. Doesn't think anything else of it. This is a day before he goes up to school. So he gets up to school, and first thing he does is takes his rifle and ammunition. Before he gets his room key, does anything else, takes his rifle, checks it into the armory, gets it secured away, and they have, it's again, a double lock door. They have a locker, their own lock. So it's a secure facility. They've actually got to go to a police officer or a public safety officer there to check that weapon out, to take it out anymore. And they're monitored in the time they're on campus. So he checks the gun in, goes to his room, unloads all his gear, starts getting settled in. It's a 5-hour drive, he's tired, so he takes a nap. A few hours later, he gets a bang on the door, and it's a public safety officer, 2 Sault Ste. Marie police officers, and the resident RA supervisor. And they're asking him if they can search his room. And he's like, "Okay guys, I don't know what's going on, but I don't have an issue with it, but what's the deal?" They said, "Well, there's been a complaint and that you're under suspicion of making a terroristic threat." And Lucas says, he says, "Okay guys, I think I know what you're talking about, probably the picture of the AR-15. And he said, "Yep, that's exactly what we're talking about." He says, "Well, I was talking about melting snowflakes. How can that possibly be construed as a threat?" And this is a true story. The cop, the lead investigating officer, told Lucas, he said, "Well, let's put it this way. You've seen The Wizard of Oz, right?" And Lucas said, "Yeah, I've seen The Wizard of Oz." He said, "Well, what happens to the Wicked Witch?" And Lucas says, "Well, Dorothy and her pals dump a bucket of water on her, and she melts away, and they save the day." He says, so the cop says, "So she dies, right?" And Lucas says, "Well, yeah." He says, "Well, that's what we're talking about." So unbelievably, their rationale, and that's an honest truth. I saw the body cam footage of the interview, and it was exactly that. The officer's context for making this accusation was the fact that the Wicked Witch of the West had been melted in The Wizard of Oz, and that therefore meant that Lucas was obviously meant to harm others. That blew me away right there. So Lucas calls me as soon as this happens. He's like, "Dad, you're not going to believe what happened." And I said, "Son, the school hasn't even started yet. What's going on?" He says, "Well, they searched my room. They think I'm some kind of a terrorist." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, I posted a picture of my AR-15, and someone took it wrong, and I don't know what's going on, but they said that they would get back with me in a couple weeks if they wanted to charge. This is to be charged as a crime." And I said, "Son, don't worry about this. You didn't do anything wrong. And, they're going to see this for what it is, and this would be another one of those incidents where you just forget about it." He says, "Well, he's really kind of shook up." I said, "Well, you know what? I can take tomorrow off from work. If you want, I can come up and hang out with you, and we can just, kind of get everybody's faculties together and take it easy." And he said, "Okay, that'd be great, Dad, if you could," which is unusual for Lucas. Normally he'd say, No, I don't need it. I'm fine." Well, that to me meant that he was really shook up. So I drove up there. It's about 4.5, 5 hours away. Got up there. During that week, it's before classes, they have a pretty cool program. It's called Lakerpalooza. It's got all kinds of carnival games, and they've got outdoor movies and food, and it's pretty awesome. So we did that. We hung out there. We walked around. We saw a movie. We did a bunch of stuff. Went out to eat, and we got back to his room that night. And he had a single room, so I was able to stay over there that night. So I signed in and got a pass for my car and said, okay, you know what? I'll hang out here. Don't worry about this again. You know, if they haven't done anything by now, if they didn't do anything right afterwards, I don't think there's any kind of issue here. Well, guess what? The next day it wasn't okay. About 8:30 in the morning, there's a knock on the door, a bang on the door, and it's Sault Ste. Marie Police, and they take him under custody under charges of making a terroristic threat or false report of terrorism. 750.543M, the state of Michigan's penal code. It's a felony. It's a 20-year felony. And to make matters worse, this law is not really compatible in court, the way it's written, the way it's structured. It's structured in a way that you really can't defend yourself because you can't use, look, I didn't know, it was a joke, I didn't mean it, I was never going to act anything on that. You can't use it. It specifically prohibits that from that issue. And on top of that, anybody can make a threat, just like the red flag laws. And I'll get into that a little bit after this, as far as the ominous cloud of this cast. This is a standing law that has a certain level of precedent to be able to charge somebody with the law. Well, that's a certain standard. It might be low, but it's still a certain standard. Red flag laws really there is nothing there to stop them from taking your guns for any reason at all. And if you look at the laws, which I have done since then, I've worked a lot with Michigan Open Carry, Tom Lambert. You hear me? Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. Jeez, you guys should have said something. I should learn how to talk in a microphone. Normally, Marine Corps doesn't give us microphones. We got a screen shot. Okay, thank you. All right, I guess I can hear myself better now. So, essentially, the red flag laws is a whole other issue that can steamroll out of this. But where it stands right now is Lucas's accuser happens to be was an old antagonist of his, and she had really got into his shorts about Columbus Day. It was a Columbus Day post, and I can't remember. It was a classroom discussion they had on what do you think of Columbus Day? Should it still be celebrated? That kind of stuff that we're hearing about. And this girl was extremely vehemently for changing it to Indigenous Peoples Day, and she was very, very passionate about that. And Lucas was not. He said, "Look, Columbus is Columbus. If you want your own day, lobby for your own day. Get Congress to pass another law. I mean, you're not taking over Columbus Day." And they went back and forth on it quite a bit, and it got to the point where Lucas said, "Okay, you know what? I think we're just have to agree to disagree, and we can't talk about this anymore because neither of us are going anywhere with this, and it's just going to be antagonistic." And so he blocked her off of Snapchat. This is the same girl, when she saw his post from another girl who was standing there, they actually got it on his friends group, and took a picture of it with her phone, specifically because she knew if she took a screenshot, that would alert him, apparently, not Snapchat. It alerts the sender that there's been a screenshot taken. Well, that didn't happen. She just took a picture of it with her own phone, and that's what she used to make the complaint. Now, when she went to make this complaint, she told the police, "Look, I've never seen a gun like this. It's really scary." Now, come on. It's an AR-15. You've seen one on TV just about every day from both sides. And on top of that, she said that the hysteria of all, she's so afraid of mass school shootings, and she knew that they could happen any moment, and she was sure that Lucas was going to do it because, he's got these extreme views, and so that's why she reported it. And okay, you know what? That happens. And I get it. There's loons out there that are going to do that. But what really got me was the fact that the prosecutor decided to take this under advisement to press charges. And on top of that, the police, they were gathering evidence, used as their de facto complaint to issue the search warrant and also the arrest warrant, basically they used extreme political views as their primary focus of why they were issuing those. Again, Lucas isn't a member of any militias. He's not a white supremacist, skinhead Nazi. I mean, there's nothing there other than the fact he's just a conservative kid and just doesn't back down. So for them to use that as their premise for their arrest and the search his room was beyond me. And to me, this was a First Amendment issue right off the bat. And there's no question about it. This is First Amendment. But it became a Second Amendment issue when the assistant prosecutor, who was taking on this case for the most part, was talking to his initial attorney. And when he took the case on, he said, look, is there going to be some kind of plea offered here? I mean, you can go for a HIDA request where you can, Home's Youthful Trainee Act, where you can do some penance and then get this thing expunged. I mean, this is ridiculous. And she said, no, we're pursuing the felony in this case. And he said, why? And there's nothing here. She says, she says, first of all, I don't think there's any reason anybody should have a gun like this. And this is the truth. This has come right from my. And then she went on to say, and we want to make sure that he gets hit with a felony so he can no longer have a gun like this. Right out of her mouth. So that's what became a Second Amendment issue to me, right along with the First Amendment issue. It's a vindictive legislation or vindictive prosecution that has caused enormous heartache. It's caused enormous stress. This has gone through. It was eventually bound over to district court. I can get into his. I don't know how much time I've got here, Shane.
Keep going.
Okay. So Lucas is arrested. He's taken to jail, Chippewa County Jail, which is a small facility. They've got actually, ironically, they actually had two terrorists, real terrorists, in the facility there that were being held on the federal side. But it's pretty much small town drunks. Guy shot a squirrel on the street, stuff like that. Okay, so Lucas is in there, but he finds out that there are 3 other individuals in that same jail, population of less than 200 people, that are charged with the same offense. Which again, this offense, it's an easy roll. And to me, the prosecutor's thinking, hey, you know what, I can say I'm tough on terrorism. And this, we can roll these cats for whatever we want. And there you have it. So Lucas is in jail. We go to the arraignment. They set bond at $250,000, which again is high up there especially, but is still doable. But the provision that really stopped everything was they wanted to tether him within the confines of Chippewa County, which is the UP. And I stand up, I talk to the judge, and I'm like, look, sir, first of all, I'm a retired Marine Colonel. I've got a top secret SCI clearance with the federal government. So he's not gonna run. I'm not gonna let him run. My life would go down to the drain just as much as his if that happened. Please let him be, if you're gonna tether him, let him be tethered out of my house, put him under my remand. And the judge, or the prosecutor stood up and said, no, we want him here. We don't trust him being downstate. We don't want to burden them with our issues. So the judge agreed with the prosecutor, and he said, no, we're going to bind him up here, which was a non-starter for me. I had no support structure up there. I'm not going to just bail my kid out and leave him in a hotel room and stew over this for however long, thinking about facing 20 years in prison. It just wasn't an option. So Lucas spent 83 days in the Chippewa County Jail until this was bound over to circuit court, where we got them to agree to allow him to be tethered out of my house. Now, on top of the tethering, and they also dropped the bond down to $200,000, which is kind of a comical story in that they would only accept cash. Small town, can't write a cashier's check, can't do anything else, it's got to be cash. So here I am carting a bag full, literally, of $20,000. In fact, I went to my credit union, and they didn't have enough $100 bills. And the manager comes out, the bank manager comes out, he's like, look, what do you need this money for? I said, look, it's not none of your business. I just need $20,000 of cash out of my account. And he said, well, we can only give you 50. So I had $20,000 in 50s in a big bag, bring it into court to pay off his bail. But the bond provisions were extreme. And for a 20-year-old young man, they're withering. He's got no access to the internet. He's got no smartphones. He can't leave the house other than to go to a legal appointment or a doctor's appointment. That's it. So he is housebound. I had to get a landline in my house just so he could make phone calls and he can pretty much watch TV and read books, which is cool because he never read books before. So at least that's one upside of this. But he's climbing the walls right now. This event initially happened on August 24th last year. He came home on November 13th, and he's been home since under tether. And it's been a waiting game since. In the interim of all this happening, I had hired a local attorney, very reputable guy, great criminal attorney, but he was very overwhelmed. I mean, he was a good attorney, so he was always busy. And this case was bringing on what I could see elements that were going to cause a lot of work, and it was probably going to go beyond what he was going to be able to take care of. And I kept getting referrals for Nick Somber. And I don't know if any of you heard of him. He's he's a superpower, kind of very passionate First Amendment, Second Amendment, any constitutional amendments or any constitutional law. He's a very passionate patriot, and I kept getting referrals that, call Mr. Somberg and see what he thinks. So I did. And to his credit, he took a lot of this on before I even retained him, because he really saw the value in what this thing really had come into play and what the precedents, the landmark cases could possibly be in terms of this kind of law. So I've since retained him as a lead attorney, and he has been amazing. We've gotten the trial adjourned to next month. It wasn't supposed to be, he was supposed to go to trial on the 18th of March. And the prosecution's holding fast. They're not dropping the case. They are still holding fast to prosecuting this. But the trial's now been adjourned to the 15th of April. We are going for a motion to dismiss on the 24th of this month, so wish us luck. I'm hoping that the circuit judge has more reason. And it's the 50th Circuit Court. To me, I sat in on some hearings, and I watched some of the proceedings, and he seemed very fair-minded. So that's got me optimistic that he might see the realistic craziness of what this is.